Welcome back. If you've ever wondered why even after deep spiritual experiences, something still feels incomplete, why sometimes you feel clarity and then you lose it, why insight comes but embodiment lags behind, or perhaps it's why you can have a profound realization one week and then the next feel like you're back in old patterns. If that sounds familiar, if you've ever felt that tension between insight and integration like I have, then this teaching may support you. Hi, David William Pierce. Welcome back. And in this video, I'm going to share something from the non-dual Śaiva Tantra tradition. Again, about the process of building a spiritual life. Śaiva Tantra tradition. Not as theory, but as lived reality. So Tantra teaches that there are 3 supports for experiential knowing of reality. Not belief, not blind faith, experiential knowing. They are sat tarka, sound and careful reflection on your own experience. Sad guru, not the guy, but the concept, the guidance of a great teacher who has walked the path. And 3, sad agama, the wisdom of scripture. These 3 work together. Your own experience matters, but Tantra is clear. Experience alone is not enough, because we rarely separate experience from interpretation. You may feel something, and then the mind immediately says something about it to give it meaning. Maybe something like, this means I'm enlightened, or this means I'm broken. But anything you can say about your experience is already an interpretation. And so Tantra invites humility. Reflect deeply on your experience, yes, and soften your certainty. Corroborate it with teacher and with scripture. So scripture protects us from an abhorrent teacher. A teacher protects us from our own misinterpretation, and our own experience protects us from blind dogma. Without scripture, a teacher may preach their idiosyncratic view of universal truth. Without a teacher, you may interpret scripture in a way that feels good, but subtly takes you off track, even slightly. That's why right view, important. Without reflection on your own experience, spirituality becomes just an intellectualization. Just intellectual masturbation, to borrow from Fight Club. Tantra exists on this trinity, this triangulation, this tri-regulation, not to create dependency, but to cultivate discernment. In Tantra, a healthy skepticism is encouraged towards scripture, towards teacher, even towards oneself. Not cynical skepticism, but mature inquiry. The process of building a spiritual life is not complete when you understand the teachings. It becomes complete when the teachings themselves become embodied, when they become living through you, and you the living embodiment of them. For me, this is the difference between knowledge and wisdom. Knowledge is learned, whereas wisdom is embodied. When wisdom stops being words and becomes vibration, there comes a point when the external form, the concepts, the language, they're no longer necessary, because the truth that they point towards is now lived directly. And paradoxically, when that happens, the words may even begin to feel flat, not because they're wrong, but because lived experience exceeds language. Language is a proxy for lived experience. It can't replace it. It can't express it exactly, only merely point towards it, approximate in its general direction. Non-dual Śaiva Tantra teaches that divine reality is fully present here and now in any and every moment. There is no future moment when God will be more revealed than he or she already is. This stance is called Krida, divine play. The universe is said to be play, not because everything is fun, as I'm sure you can attest, I certainly can, but because it is done for its own sake, not as a means to an expected outcome. And here is something subtle and powerful, that in every experience, without exception, there exists the possibility of Ananda. Not extreme happiness, but loving acceptance. This sense of contented bliss. The heart has an innate capacity to envelop any experience in loving awareness, even the ones the mind rejects. And when it does, that is Ananda. And Tantra teaches that it is possible to live in that state, but just like the dipping of a tea bag in water, it takes time for it to become that default reality, to shift out of what is default experience of the nature of reality, which is mostly suffering, with colors of bliss, of Ananda, of that enjoyment, to flip and reverse that so that it is predominantly that contented bliss we're experiencing in moment to moment with tinges of suffering. Tantra makes a bold claim. Once awakening is glimpsed, even briefly, the process cannot be undone. Even if you reject the path, even if you turn away, grace continues. Why? Because once the possibility of full awakening has been tasted, nothing else feels fully satisfying in comparison. This is why some people cannot return to ordinary life after deep spiritual insight. But this teaching gives rise to two misunderstandings. Misunderstanding number one: if awakening is inevitable, I don't need to do anything. Tantra responds, the process unfolds through grace and self-effort. Grace ensures the conditions. Self-effort determines the speed. But self-effort here does not mean striving towards a distant goal. No, it means the gentle effort required to loosen one's grip on limited knowledge. It means cultivating insight, continuing to do so, practicing yoga. Without effort, awakening unfolds at an infinitesimal rate. But with striving, you waste energy. The effort then is subtle. It is the effort of relaxing contraction. Okay, misunderstanding number two. Liberation is a long, gradual process. Well, Tantra says yes and no, paradoxically so. Integration unfolds gradually. However, awakening itself may occur in a single leap because it is not dependent on a specific amount of practice. If you imagine it as far away, it will seem far away. Shiva gets what Shiva wants. Instead, you are invited to hold the awareness that it could be as close as your next breath. And then to take that next breath as an opening without expectation. Here is something that often changes everything. Your real nature was never wounded. You are not broken. Therefore, accessing it does not depend on solving all of your problems. Many people assume liberation comes after therapy is complete. Once we've reached that perfect version of ourselves, after our wounds are healed, after the self is fixed. And Tantra says the self you are trying to fix is not the real you. Often what happens is awakening comes first. You recognize that the limited, conditioned self is not your essence. And then, gradually, the mind reorganizes itself around that realization, the continual dipping of the tea. I'm going to do it. Dipping. Oh, don't drop the microphone. Dipping of the tea bag. This period of integration can be easeful, or it can be deeply unsettling. And if it is unsettling, remember, 1, you're not alone. 2, it's okay. And 3, that it's the mind that is unsettled. Your real nature, friend, remains untouched. You're just getting caught in the layers of dust on the surface, and underneath is that essence, nature, that contented bliss of who you always were, who you always are. For me, whilst I've been studying and exploring Tantra for the past 6 years, revisiting this teaching is often supportive. I'm still integrating. It is a lifelong journey, my friends, and sometimes I too get lost in the stories of my mind that I'm continually on the journey of rewriting and revealing. So being reminded that those moments of challenge are my mind's distortions, my limited self-running programs, outdated beliefs to try and protect me. This is why I've combined these teachings with the works of those who've come before me, like Tony Robbins, David Bayer, Joe Dispenza, to name a few, to create the Clarity Protocol, this 4-stage system to identify and interrupt a recurring emotional and behavioral loop at its root, so that lasting change can be integrated with structure quickly. And it's really serving me. I'm noticing shifts in my life, real-time conversations that would have dropped me into a trauma response I'm holding. And trauma responses I do get dropped into, they don't last long. I have the tools to identify the patience to rewrite and the wisdom to draw from. And now I'm getting to share that with people. And that's exciting. So, if this teaching resonates, not as philosophy, but as recognition, I've created a short quiz linked in the description to support you in reflecting on these principles and deepen your understanding so you can develop, learn, and explore further. And if you feel called to walk this path with company, Tiffany and I support singles who are wanting to ready themselves for a relationship with our one-on-one work in sex prayers, as well as supporting couples who want to deepen into intimacy together through contact massage. Both, I won't get into other than saying, bring me a lot of joy to share. We'll also be launching a Tantric Intimacy Mastermind later this year, where we take these teachings as well as trauma-informed somatics to help you integrate the change you're wanting to see in your life in an 8-week online container. So stay tuned for that. Reach out to connect, and see you in the next video. Bye, friends.